The Alberta government announced sweeping gender policy changes in January. Now those plans will impact how and when sex ed is taught in schools. So what's changing? Well, as it is right now, the curriculum dictates what students are learning in which grades. Lessons on development and puberty start in grade 4. By junior high, students are learning about contraception and STIs. And in high school, there's more of a focus on responsible sexual behavior. The key thing here is that those students are assumed that they're participating in those lessons, unless their parents or guardians opt them out.
So as a teacher, you kind of work on the assumption, unless you hear back from a parent through some sort of notification, that everybody's good to go for the instruction on that day.
But under the new policies, parents will have to opt their children into lessons on human sexuality and gender identity, making Alberta the first province to adopt an opt-in policy. And that has some teachers worrying about what their students might skip and how they'll handle the additional logistics.
You're going to have students missing out on really key instruction that is useful to them in their lives, and then expanding from human sexuality into gender identity and sexual orientation sort of expands that, and now schools need to assume that schools or students are not available or interested in the instruction, and then they have to chase down that opting in. And it sort of adds an extra administrative burden onto schools and to teachers.
For high school students, sex ed is a small portion of the Career and Learning Management, or CALM, curriculum. I spoke with one educator who worries the teachers may reduce or gloss over certain topics in that instruction.
If you're going to bring up sexual orientation and gender identity, or you want to talk about reproductive rights for girls, teachers are going to say, well, I don't really need to do that, because it's not explicit that they do.
So if teachers say it's working, then why the change? Well, some parental rights groups say they've been asking for it.
Parents were being left in the dark about what kinds of materials their children were learning. And obviously, parents felt very intensely about that in the context of human sexuality. That wasn't the only context in which we were raising the issue, but obviously that was one of the key contexts where parents felt they were being left in the dark.
Now, parents and educators aren't the only ones invested in this. Some schools bring in third parties to teach sex ed to high school students, from consent to unplanned pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, and to highlight resources available for youths. But it's currently unclear how these experts will work within the new policies, or whether their materials will need to be approved by the Ministry of Education, and if it will make it more difficult for the schools to host presenters.
I think it has very dire consequences around people's health, around a lot of other issues in people's lives. And we already in Alberta see really, really high rates, for example, of sexually transmitted infections. Comprehensive sexual health helps with that in many different ways. And without that, we're just going to see that continue to happen, and perhaps an uptick in unplanned pregnancies as well.
CBC News reached out to Alberta's Education Minister, Demetrius Nicolaides, to ask how these policies will play out in Alberta classrooms. We received a brief statement saying policy implementation will require consultation and feedback from various stakeholders. Over the next few months, I will be engaging on how to implement these policies to best support students. The policy is not expected to be addressed in the Alberta legislature until at least the fall. Travis McEwen, CBC News, Edmonton.